Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Talking About Success. I'm your host, Jack Canfield. You may know me as America's #1 success coach, the co-author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, the book, The Success Principles, How to Get From Where You Are to Where You Want to Be, and chairman of the Canfield Training Group. And I'm here today with a wonderful guest who is going to share with you some amazing information about how to have the right marriage, how to pick the right person. She is a relationships expert, a marriage counselor. She is a marriage therapist, I should say, and she's author of 2 wonderful books, I Only Want to Get Married Once, and Oh, That's Why I Married You. So we're going to talk about the information that she's shared in those books, and her commitment to life is to really help people create the kind of relationships they all dream of. So thank you for joining me. Chana Levitan, you're amazing to be here. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Jack. I'm so excited about this interview.
I am too. So, I know what I'm going to ask you, and I'm looking forward to the answers because they're really interesting. So, just start by telling us just a little bit about your background, who you are, and the work you do, and then we'll dive into more specifics.
Okay, great. So I work as a marriage therapist, a dating coach, and an educator. Basically, I spend my time helping people get married, stay married, and create lasting love.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I love it.
That's great.
Yeah.
So how did you get into this work? What inspired you to want to be a marriage therapist, a relationships expert?
Yeah. Well, growing up, my parents really struggled in their marriage. And I give them a whole lot of credit for trying because there wasn't a lot of help around in those days. But watching them struggle, and I was surrounded by really bad marriages. And my conclusion was, I am not getting married. Like, no way. And, what turned me around? There was a woman I had met a few times, very put together, classy, very intelligent. One day, I bumped into her when she was with her husband, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. She's so classy and put together, and he's not. And I'm thinking in my 18-year-old mind, like, what's not a good couple, right?
Right.
And then he says to me, hey, can I tell you how I met my wife? And I'm like, yeah, sure. He says, well, I was playing in a jazz club, and my wife walked in with her friends, and I said to my buddy, I said, that's my gal. And her eyes lit up, and his eyes lit up, and my heart lit up at that point. I was like, oh my, wait, I have never seen love like this. This is, it felt like a lifetime of love. That was like they're married for 50 years, like 50, and they're telling that story as if they met yesterday. Mm-hmm. And when I saw that, I said, I do want to get married, but that's the kind of marriage that I want to build. And I could say 31 years now into my own marriage that it was the smartest thing, it was the best thing that I ever did. And I want to give other people this opportunity as well, if they're interested.
Mm-hmm. So that's what inspired you.
Yeah.
So how did you actually transition into doing this work?
Yeah, well, I started out as an educator, and I was teaching subjects about, let's say, personal growth, like character development, and relationships is one of those topics. And whenever I taught about relationships, the room filled up. And I think it's because I'd spent a lot of my adulthood, my young adulthood and my adolescence trying to figure out the whole infatuation love enigma, right? It's like you have to be infatuated to get to love, but infatuation could lead you to this awful, horrible, toxic relationship.
Right.
So I had cracked the code for myself, meaning that I dated a lot of the wrong guys but married the right one. And then a lot of people said, well, how'd you do that? And I helped them to crack their code, and that's how the room filled up. And then that turned into a book and another book, and I think some people find their passion, and some people, their passion finds them. And for some of us, for me, it was a combination of both.
So what inspired you to write the book? Here you are, you're doing all this work, but writing a book's a big challenge.
Oh. I didn't plan to write a book. Mm-hmm. It wasn't on a dream of mine. It wasn't on my agenda. But I had a good friend and a colleague who she kept saying to me, you have to write this book. You can get your message out, help people, serve the world. Mm-hmm. And I said, when am I going to write a book? I don't have time to write a book. She said, do it. You've got to do it. One day I sat down and I wrote my book. I mean, not one day, but I started and then I really couldn't stop. And then it was just like she said, like all of a sudden I found out it's being translated into Chinese, into Romanian, and it sort of took off
Wow.
And yeah. And then I started getting emails. You know this better than I do. Emails from people all over the world, right? This woman in Australia, from some obscure town in Australia, she's like, Chana, I read your book. It led me to the right person. It was unbelievable. Thank you. And I'm like, wow. And then I get an email from this guy in Romania, and he's like, thank you so much for writing your book. It led me to the right person after I'd met the wrong one, married the wrong one, and now I'm in the right relationship. And I'm like, wow, cool. And, just my brother called me, and he's like, I'm standing in Starbucks and in New York City, and this woman is standing in front of me holding your book.
Oh, how cool is that?
Right. And she's like, oh, I just read this book. It's exactly what I needed for my clarity. So, and then I was in a supermarket once, and this woman comes up to me and she's like, wow, you're Chana Levitan. I'm like, yeah. She says, you wrote that book. That's why I married you. I was on the verge of divorce, and we're married today together with our 4 children as an intact family unit because of your book. And wow. I that's what I want to say. Anyone who's got a message, get it out there. Like, put it out there, because if I could do this, you can do it too.
I feel the same way. Little Jackie Canfield from Wheeling, West Virginia. If I can write a book, anybody can do it.
Well, you wrote quite a few.
I did. But, it's inspiration of others writing their books that inspired me to write mine. And I get a lot of people saying the same thing. So do you work with people all over the world?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And do they come to you? Do you work by Zoom calls or what?
All of it. Yeah. And I'll fly also to different places. When I fly, people come and meet with me. But I do a lot of Zoom, a lot of Skype. And it's so cool, right? You can just work with...
I know, work with people all over the world.
Right?
It's fabulous. So share some of the success stories from the couples you've worked with. I'm curious.
Yeah, well, one of my favorites is this guy who came up to speak with me after one of my lectures. And he's like, I love what you're saying about love, about marriage. It's just too late for me because I'm getting divorced now. And I'm like, well, did you try counseling? He said, no. I said, seriously, you're getting divorced without trying counseling? He's like, well, I didn't want to go, and then she didn't want to go. I said, tell your wife, I'm offering you a free session. Just come in once. He's like, thank you, but it's too late. I mean, we're separated. She's divorcing me, he said, and she already paid the divorce lawyers. I mean, it's over. I said, it is not over until it's over. So I said, give her the offer. So he emailed me that day, and he's like, she said no. I said, okay, we tried. A week later, I get an email, and she said she's going to try one session. I said, great. So in they come to my office. She has a stack of complaints, and she's going one by one, and I'm like, I hear you. I really get it. I do. And try this exercise. So they did this exercise, very deep, connecting, emotional intimacy exercise for about an hour. And in an hour into the exercise, she says, wow, we're married for 18 years. We've never had a conversation like this. And I said, right. So how about instead of getting divorced, why don't you guys get married?
I love it.
And they are. She moved back in. I mean, it took a while. We worked together for a while, and she moved back in, and we unpacked all the stuff. But they're a beautiful couple. And I just think to myself, how many people could be together today if they had the tools, if they had the right information, which is why we're here. This is why I do what I do.
So you also work with people that are not married yet. They're just dating.
Yeah, of course.
What do you do with them?
Oh, yeah. So that's, coming back to the love infatuation thing, I think that's where we get so tripped up. And I keep thinking every year people are going to get it right, and this will become outdated, this whole discussion. But it's not. I think it's the opposite. The longer things continue, the more we buy into this thing that infatuation is love. And it's not, right? We know today that infatuation could lead to love. And it's a fun experience, but it's not going to last more than 2 or 3 years. So what I do with dating with my singles is really help to clarify the idea and the fact that we do need some infatuation. I mean, that's great. We want some of that. That's fun. But we also want to put that infatuation a little bit on the side and to see whether there's real love potential, like lasting love. So for that, we look for 5 things. And this is not a wish list. These 5 things have to be there, right? So 1, values, shared values, which if we share values, we share goals. Number 2, healthy boundaries, right? That we need to have a sense of our own boundaries and the other person as well. 3, mutual trust. 4, mutual respect. And 5, good communication. So, if we've got those 5 things and we've got that chemistry, this is real potential, potential. So this is what I work on with my singles, and one-on-one, or they'll come in sometimes when they're dating, and I'll give them the tools also. Just sometimes if it's just like I didn't see a good marriage growing up. How many people really have seen a good marriage?
No, I saw a cartoon recently. It showed 2 people sitting in a huge auditorium looking toward a stage, and it said Children of Normal Parents Convention.
I love that.
So most of us, my parents fought all the time. They had no skills. So I totally get it.
Yeah.
Well, we teach everything in school about mathematics and biology and history and science, but we don't teach communication skills. We don't teach values. We don't teach all the things you talked about are not taught in school. And I often say in America, nobody ever got divorced because they didn't memorize the 5 causes of the Civil War. They got divorced because they never learned how to communicate. So, if you're watching this, basically, you need to know these are skills and tools and concepts and abilities that you have to learn as an adult because we're not mostly getting it in school.
Right. Yeah. We have to seek this out.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's there when we want it.
Yeah, there's lots of information, and you've captured a lot of it. So I'm just curious, share something that you teach in a little more detail. Like I'm curious about maybe the exercise you talked about with the couple, or how you help people clarify if they have similar values. Just one thing that our viewers could go, oh, that's good, I could use that.
Okay. Well, first of all, if we're dealing with, we could do exercises with couples and then maybe with singles.
Right.
So with couples, I talk a lot about, and I write a lot about personality differences.
Personality differences.
Yeah, because they're good. When there's personality differences in a couple, they're actually great. That's where a lot of the attraction is held, within those differences, if we know how to use them. So what trips us up is when we were kids, who are we friends with? The person we like the same color, or we have the same football cards, right? It's all about the same.
Right.
Because kids can't negotiate differences.
That's
Adult
interesting, yeah.
love, right? Adult love is all about how do I get close and stay close to someone who thinks differently, feels differently, right? Has different opinions. Now, when people are dating, I say, hey, first you want to get on the same page with the values. Of course, we need similarities. But no matter how similar we are in our values and goals, personality-wise, we're not going to meet someone who's exactly like us, because there isn't such a thing, right? And if we did meet a clone, if there was such a thing, we wouldn't be attracted to them.
Yeah, we'd be bored.
Totally, right? So it's sort of like, it's in our DNA, I think, that, let's say if someone was to start a business and they could only hire one person, would they hire someone who could do the same thing that they can do, or someone who could do different things and likes to do different things, right? So that's our attraction. That's why we're attracted to an opposite, and that's really where the attraction, when we have the right perspective and we look through the lens of complementary, right, personality differences, then the relationship comes alive, and that's the secret.
That's really good. I know it's true for my wife and I. She is totally outrageous, unbounded, creative, spontaneous. I'm much more just lockstep, logical, linear, And one of my friends said that in relationships, usually have one person's a string and the other one's a balloon. And that's where you get the dynamic tension that makes it interesting. You get 2 balloons, they just float off into the ethers.
Totally.
2 strings, totally boring.
Totally.
Yeah.
Also, my husband is so grounded, and I am the I'm a dreamer, right? I'm so grateful to him for grounding me. Although there are times when I just want to say to him, will you just like, come on, dream with me. But really, the growth in our marriage is very much because he is the grounding.
Right.
And I help him to float.
Right. You talk in your book about love being a muscle. Can you talk about that?
Oh, yeah. You know, people say love is a verb, and it is. But if it's a verb, it's also a muscle. Now, muscles, what's interesting about muscles is the more we use them, the easier, right, it is to use them.
Right.
So, you know, lifting 10 pounds and then 20 pounds and then 30 pounds, and we look back at 10 pounds, I was like, what was that, right? So love is a muscle, focusing on the positive in our spouse. That's a muscle, right? If we teach ourselves to continue to focus on that positive, it becomes easier, right? And the opposite, unfortunately. If we focus on what we don't like, then we get stuck there. So focusing on why we got married in the first place. What was it that initially attracted us, right? So love is a muscle, right? We want to flex the muscle, and the investment is an investment, but the dividends are so great.
Right. Right. Now you also talk about the power of one. Talk about that.
Oh my gosh. You know, I think with time, working with couples and in my own marriage, I am more and more blown away by what one person can do, the effect of one person on a relationship. You know, because change in a relationship does not happen in unison. It's not like 1, 2, 3, change. You know, it happens unilaterally. Like, I've got to work on this. Okay, my spouse might be acting like an idiot right now, but I could also act like an idiot. So let me work on me and really focus on my stuff. And when we do that, one person takes that seriously without looking over the shoulder. Is he coming along? Is she changing? Right? But really taking our stuff seriously, and we make the change, the other one starts to change, because marriage is a system. It's a relationship that when one side makes positive change, the other comes along. I do want to say there's an exception. You know, if there's an abusive relationship, if someone is married to an addict who's not dealing with their addiction and they're not showing up, then the power of one is limited. But when we're dealing with someone who can show up and pretty much is showing up, maybe not according to the level that we want them to, but yes, there's another person on the other side, the power of one is just amazing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, you make some distinctions about self-esteem, spouse esteem, marriage esteem. Talk about that.
I love this, because every marriage and every relationship needs to know about this. Self-esteem is holding ourselves in warm, positive regard amidst our flaws. And we've got our flaws, but we need to love ourselves with those flaws. Spouse esteem is learning to love our partner with his or her flaws, because we've got our flaws and none of us are perfect. Marriage esteem is learning to love our relationship and amidst its flaws, because there's no such thing as a perfect relationship, as a perfect marriage, right? So again, what messes us up is that we all tend to compare to our friend's marriage, to the neighbor's marriage, to the celeb marriage, to what we thought our marriage would look like. And that robs us of the beauty and the uniqueness of our relationship. Right? The private victories. I mean, think about how many private victories every day does each couple go through. And we come through, we work together, private victories that no one from the outside would even ever understand. And it's none of their business anyway, but still it's like these threads of connection, of commitment, of breaking through, of coming through, that create this beautiful tapestry that each marriage really is, if we esteem our relationship.
When you talk about these private little victories, I'm thinking of things like, well, getting our son through his dyslexia and things like that no one else might know about, but we did it together, and there's a victory in that.
That victory, or disagreements, difficulties that we have in our personalities that we work out, right? How to keep our love alive and our attraction alive. I mean, each day there are so many victories, financial stuff, how we work together, how we forgive each other. Yeah.
Important,
I mean,
yeah.
it's Yeah, and this is the stuff that makes a marriage, if we focus on the positive and we esteem our relationship amidst its flaws,
Yeah.
right? It's not perfect, and we can laugh at our flaws.
Now, you talk about the importance of time together, and I know that most people, especially in my profession, those of us who think we're doing amazing things for the world and we have to be out there doing them, I hear this from so many people, and their spouses are often going, you don't spend enough time with me. And then they go, I don't have the time. So talk about how do you create the time? What advice do you give to couples for making sure there's actually enough time to be together?
Yeah. Look, it's difficult because we're busy and we seem to just get busier.
Mm-hmm.
But the good news is every single day, there's 1,140 minutes in that day. So of those 1,140 minutes, can't we find 10 to 20 minutes for face-to-face time? And I say this because there was a study in LA a while ago that couples are spending 35 minutes a week talking face-to-face. And that's insane. Like, what couple can thrive like that and survive even, right? So 1,140 minutes face-to-face, and so the research by the Mental Health Foundation shows us that it's the neurochemical response that happens face-to-face that feeds us as individuals and also as our couple. So FaceTime is great to keep in touch during the day. A text here and there is wonderful, but we need to find that face-to-face time together. And again, when we put the time in, the reward is so much greater, because when our relationship is great, everything goes well, right? When our relationship is starving, there's something missing, and everything we do will be negatively affected by that.
Well, I live by that phrase, happy wife, happy life. So I know for me, if my wife's not happy, I'm not happy.
Well, and I would say the same thing for a husband, really.
This I had an insight as you were talking. We'll schedule 20 minutes for the gym, 20 minutes or more. We'll schedule 20 minutes for meditation or, exercise, writing, whatever. But to just commit 20 minutes to build this love muscle you're talking about of actually communicating, listening, responding, being present to, it doesn't seem like it's that challenging when you really put it in that perspective. Because normally we're just like shooting by each other. We're talking while I'm making dinner and looking at not each other, but the vegetables, whatever it might be. My wife's, the 5 love languages, hers is quality time. And so if we don't have that face-to-face, eye-to-eye, but I like the idea of like 20 minutes. This is good.
20 minutes, and 20 minutes of real solid time. Look, more so on weekends. We would hope, for more so on weekends. But it's that time, and, I think, Stephen Covey's principle of, we go for the urgent rather than the important. Like, that's what we have to teach ourselves.
Right.
The urgent can wait. The important is our loved ones. The important is that which over time is really going to feed us and feed our family.
Right. One of the other things you talk about in your book, I'd like you to just talk about a little bit, is this idea of emotional regulation and self-soothing. Can you explore that for a minute with us?
Yeah. So what's fascinating is when we get close to another person, all of our young parts surface, right? All the stuff that we haven't worked out, and they're sort of yelling out to us, work on me. And so the great news here is that marriage is going to be an express train to growing and to coming into our best self, because, hey, all the stuff is coming up. But we need to work on it. We need tools to center ourselves, to calm ourselves down enough that we can show up in the relationship and then own our stuff. Mm-hmm. So I think each one of us needs a tool. I call it a tool, like a tool bag of emotional regulation techniques that we can draw upon, right? Not just one or two. I find like 3 or 4 is great, right? So some examples are meditation, prayer, EFT tapping, dance, music, Tai Chi, yoga, whatever it is that works for us, breathing exercises to help us to reconnect to our center so that we can access our higher self, our adult self. And that's how we build up, we bring up these younger parts, these more immature parts that we all have.
Sure.
I
think that we get married so they do come up, and then we get the opportunity to heal them. So that's good.
Yeah.
So talk to us just a little bit. We just have a few minutes left about any advice you have for people that are just dating. They're not in a committed relationship necessarily. Do you have advice for them you can share with us?
Yeah. So, as much as the chemistry is important, and it really is, right? Chemistry is huge. We do need to take the time to look for the values to make sure that we are on the same page, right? There was an article in the New York Times a while ago entitled, "Love You, Now the Difficult Stuff." About, people running and getting engaged without ever talking about the real stuff.
Right.
So this is why I cannot overemphasize how important it is, because we all get educated by movies, right? How do we find out about love? Movies. But a movie's 2.5 hours at most, right? And in that movie, like we buy into that was love. Mm-hmm. That was to act, an actor that was not real.
Right.
And yes, infatuation can last 2.5 hours. But real love, we need a basis for real love. So again, we can have chemistry with the most incredible person for us. We can have chemistry with someone who's really bad for us. So it means, and again, this is the main thing, slow down, connect on a deeper level, right? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people, I see this a lot, when people are dating, they're afraid to talk about real stuff because they think it's going to kill the chemistry.
Right.
And if it kills the chemistry, then it should die.
Yeah, exactly.
Let it go, right? Because it was not good. If you do connect on real stuff, it builds the chemistry. But again, we have to allow the chemistry to also grow into more of a deeper kind of connection, not just that flipping of the stomach.
Right. Now, if people want to get a hold of your book or they want to work with you or find out more about your work, where do they go?
Well, I'm really easy to find online. My website is chanalevitan.com, and I pronounce my name Chana, but it's written Chana, so it's easier to find me that way. Yeah. So it's chanalevitan.com, and I have a lot of free resources on my website for everyone to just download, so please take part. And my books are available on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, wherever books are sold. Mm-hmm. I'd love for everyone to join me on Facebook, Instagram, and my latest excitement is my YouTube channel, because I've been creating these videos of happily married couples in great marriages, sharing their struggles, their challenges, and how they push through to true love.
Oh, beautiful.
To lasting love. And since that's really what inspired me, seeing a real couple in a real marriage, in a really great marriage. So I've created these videos to share with everybody else, to inspire people. These are videos of real couples in real marriages, sharing real challenges and real success, giving us all real tools. So please join me on my YouTube channel. The name of the videos is The Hidden Power of Marriage. And they're short, inspirational, and entertaining videos.
Hidden Power of Marriage.
Hidden Power of Marriage, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
You are a Wikipedia of relationship expertise. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you for joining me.
You are just amazing. And just keep doing what you're doing. You inspire all of us.
I will.
Really.
You keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. So you heard it here. There's all kinds of tools that are available for you. If you don't know about them, you can find them at her website. And we'll put that up on the screen again for you to see. Check out her YouTube channel. She's got free resources at her website. And she also does work with people. So if you feel like you would like to take advantage of that, you can contact her there as well. So I hope this was valuable for you. I learned something today. I'm going to change one behavior of mine as a result of this. And so I look forward to seeing you next week. Stay tuned, and we'll be back a week from now with another guest that can take your life to the next level. Thank you for watching this episode of Talking About Success. Remember, your success is a journey. So for more information and free resources to help you, be sure to visit jackcanfield.com/learn more.